All right, I think we're live. I'm with Micaela Balzer
Yeah,
with Impression 5. So let's just start with why don't you just tell us about Impression 5?
sure.
Just anybody who's never been there, kind of what it's like, what all the things you guys offer.
For sure. So, Impression 5 Science Center is what we would call a hands on science center. It invokes families, so basically children's birth to about 14 years old, to engage in learning about science with a very hands-on exploration. So what you will find is like these larger than life hands-on experiences anywhere between like exploring water to exploring nuclear science. I mean, it is from probably the most basic, loving, fantastic, fun science like bubble science and making bubbles, all the way to the complicated like light and energy and talking about all these principles. But it's done in such a fun way. Visitors are invited to touch and play with everything. Really a very personal approach into engaging with science.
Cool. Um, let's dive into accessibility and why don't we start out with like some of the things you guys have done or brought in as far as programs to increase the accessibility at Impression 5?
Sure, absolutely. So, I think for us, it's been a journey. It's really, figuring out who to partner with, who to learn from, really who to invite at the table to like make those informed decisions. And we're so lucky because, Lansing in general is such a like pro accessibility community. There are lots of people working towards. And so for us, it's in the beginning of our journey was just trying to connect and try to figure out. So the Mid Michigan Autism Association has been a really great partner. They've really brought along a lot of resources, training for staff. They brought a lot of like really great ways for us to connect. Abilize, also been an amazing partner way from the beginning, as we were exploring, really ways that we can really open up those accessibility doors of Impression 5. We've done a lot of audits here at the Science Center, a lot of other nonprofits, and just figuring out ways that we can serve. And so one of the things was just visibility, right? How can guests prepare for their visit? How can guests anticipate what you have to offer? So, how do you put that on your website? How do you communicate that across? How do you invite people? How to make them aware? How to partner with other folks? So that's like first step, for us. The second was just learning a lot. We started having sensory friendly days here at the Science Center, and we would invite families at no cost to come to these moments, because we wanted to learn of like what we could improve or do better. So one of these audits included just playing with the exhibits, seeing what could be potential things that we could improve. So for example, in the water room, we have this bell. The water room by nature is already very loud. So we have this bell that is part of an exhibit, and it just like ding ding dings. And so can you just imagine
Yeah.
sensory issues and you're walking into the space, not only is the water overstimulating, but then this other sound. So on sensory friendly days that we have here at the Science Center, we remove that exhibit component completely out. So it's something that families kind of engage. The other thing is just like hand dryers. Those can be very loud and just not comforting. So we've like dampened and provided a different alternative way to dry your hands, which is cloths and things that we typically wouldn't necessarily do every day. We created a sensory friendly map. So sensory friendly days became a very important way that we serve our audience. In the past, it was just like once a month, but now lately it's become twice a month.
Yeah.
Along the process of this journey, we've also created a sensory friendly room. So one of the things is just really making sure that we provide a space, right? And so really created a space within the Science Center because we know that visits can be tough. And if you just had a space to have a small break, then you might be able to continue, right? And be able to stay for the rest of the visit. So there are different ways that the Science Center has kind of engaged. I mean, with figuring out ways for accessibility for the Science Center for everyone.
What about looking forward? So like you said, it's a journey. So do you guys have anything on your radar that like 2025, 26, maybe even through 30 that you're kind of looking at as programs or partners?
Yeah. So a couple things that we're kind of thinking about, we started out with our sensory friendly backpacks.
Yep.
There's a constant audit, just kind of looking at what's provided inside, what families are using, what they're not using. We have a lot of different types of exhibits that require sound, and it can be overstimulating just to be in an environment. Or, for example, there's another environment that might have a lot of light. So just making sure that instead of just having the backpacks, that we have ear protectors, ear defenders, and some sunglasses already in throughout the exhibit floor area. So taking a very different approach, instead of just providing it in a backpack way, but always having it available is kind of like one of the steps. The other one is just kind of thinking about how learners are learning. So we have, vision impairment that can be an issue for a lot of families, whether it's the adult or the child themselves. And so figuring out ways that our exhibits could either be in Braille, figuring out ways that we could potentially turn some of our exhibits, instead of you having to read it, having like a companion guide that you can hear. So just figuring out ways to kind of, again, continue to enhance people's experiences and abilities to connect to that really fun science that we have here at the Science Center.
Yeah. So how long have you been at Impression Five?
Oh man, that's a torrid history. I've been at the Science Center for over 30 years. I started out as a teen here in the organization, and I remember my first job was to greet people. So it's kind of like the Meyer greeter moment, right? Except
Yeah.
mine was really close to admission, and so I would say like, "Hey, welcome to Impression Five. Admission's right here." I really fell in love with Impression Five and its mission at its core. It's all focused around people and people being able to access approachable science, and it has a long life impact, and it definitely has had one on me for sure.
What's your what's your favorite part about Impression Five?
Wow, that's a tough one. From an exhibit standpoint, I would have to say Spectrum. Spectrum is my favorite. It's all about light and color. And there is a fantastic exhibit in the back, which is kind of like a light mosaic. And basically, you take these wonderful light tubes, or they're clear, and then you put them inside this light area, like a light peg, and then you turn it and it changes color. The innovation that that exhibit took to create and the type of personal messages that people write on that is just so amazing. So the other day we walked up there and a staff member had to take a picture, and it was like love wins. And so, you finally get, people write their names on it, people
Yeah.
write like really inspirational messages on it. And so, hearts are there all the time. And so it's a really great way for like people to communicate, but also use science, right? And so I think for that reason, that's my favorite exhibit. In general, about Impression Five, my favorite thing is the people. People here are so passionate to move the mission of the Science Center. It's just inspiring every day.
How how are you guys funded?
So we're a private nonprofit. There's lots of sources of income. So one for sure, the Science Center charges admission. We have revenue streams here at the Science Center. Memberships are a great way for families to be part of Impression Five. It's a yearly membership. There's definitely a group of community members that donate to the Science Center, so individual donors. But the other big portion is that we have community partners, like companies that support Impression Five. We write grants, and so there's definitely a lot of ways that the Science Center is funded. Some of it is specific grants, so for example, if we're building an exhibit, then it would be specific towards that exhibit. So for example, our last exhibit that we built was Megawatt, and Consumers Energy came in to fund that exhibit. There are other things that are initiatives or partnerships that get funded that way for sure. But a lot of it too is just of trying to figure out the best way to both earn our revenue here at the organization, be a strong organization, and then really write grants to create the future that we can't even imagine yet.
Yeah, cool. Is there anything that we missed that you want to touch on?
No, I mean, I just invite everyone to visit. I think, to be honest with you, if you've never been to Impression Five, get ready. It's a really fun experience. If you have been in Impression Five, come back. There is always something new to see and do. So bring your neighbors, bring your cousins, bring anybody that you know. It really is an enjoyable time for everyone to kind of engage with science.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for jumping on with us.
Yeah, for sure.
All
Thank
right,
you.
we'll chat soon.
Okay.